Hey, I'm Andre. In this video, I want to talk about and continue to talk about the cybersecurity industry in Australia and New Zealand. A couple weeks back, I covered it in a very brief short. What's the expectation in terms of growth for these industries? Now, what I want to cover here today is in a little more depth by providing you also visibility into these kind of information from these reports, namely all public sources, mind you, right? But namely Mordor Intelligence, which I covered back then, expert managed market research, and so on and so forth, but in a tool that is actually public facing for everyone. So let's have a look at this. So this here is the tool I created for it. Essentially, it's an infographic that is in the web page. You can find this on the link in the description here, but essentially it leverages different sources and different reports to come out with these information that is relevant for anyone dealing with managed security services provider. Why am I talking about this as a follow-up from the security growth expectations in these locations? Essentially, we fall into a few pitfalls here. There's a few things that are hindering and limiting the growth of cybersecurity industry. How people can scale, how can companies scale their operations to meet the demands of either their internal growth, but also the threat landscape that is also ever increasing. So essentially, they need to leverage heavily what is known as an MSSP, managed security services provider. Okay, this is why I decided to have a dedicated look into the market for MSSPs in these regions as well, and seeing what is the potential growth for these industries. So if you look at the, well, let's call it market opportunity, but the way I want to see this is how can we expect these to grow in the coming months, right, or the coming years. So pretty much we're looking at more than 200% growth in the next decade for Australia, according to a couple researches here, Statista, iMark, and so on and so forth, and more than 44% growth in 5 years' time for New Zealand. So major growth, more than double digit, like I mentioned before, is only possible because of the threat environment that we see in these regions. Okay, so of course we need to have MSSPs and SOCs and SOC as a service that cater for the threats that are seen in both countries. Australia, over the last few years, by different reports and research you can see here, has observed growth in very different tactics and attack vectors from adversaries. Look at business email compromise, remains very high from all kinds of different adversaries. Ransomware extortion, we know, I spoke about Scattered Spider recently as well. This is also part of it. They leverage ransomware extortion, and they have been growing their operations in these regions. And identity theft and credential, also big part of social engineering as part of this actor, but also others. If you look at New Zealand, we still suffer as a country here a lot of different yet traditional kinds of scams. Phishing and scams, ransomware, still pretty much a problem, a disruptive force. This is according to Cordia security reports, and insecure software and systems, which is just hygiene, IT hygiene. So we need modern SOC, and something that different service providers and the industry is moving towards is how to make your SOC future-proof. I want to call this series, and this video is supposed to be the first of this series, which I want to call it Future SOCs. Okay, now get it as what you want from it, but look, English is only my second language, so I hope this makes sense to you. What I want to see here is what are SOCs and how are SOCs being built for the next wave of evolution and next wave of technology evolution, which is essentially being built on top of AI, right? So AI-driven SOCs. So what kind of technology do they need to leverage? Essentially, a consolidated approach is what most are leaning towards, of course, with major providers, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Microsoft, all hinging heavily on top of their single platforms, and these providers have to leverage that in order to scale their operations, right? So we're seeing here Converged Stack for SIEM, SOAR, XDR, Identity Security Stack, UEBA, User and Entity Behavior Analytics, Threat Intelligence, and CTEM as well, which is Continuous Threat Exposure Management as well, which is incredibly central to a lot of these providers. How are they moving from traditional vulnerability management solutions to something that is continuous, something that is built on top of a platform that allows them to do a lot more than just gather reports and snapshots or point-in-time reports for the vulnerabilities that they find in their customer environments. So if this here is part of a wider platform that is potentially powered by a SOAR and has access to a SIEM, this sort of vulnerability and exposure management insights can fit into a response scenario that traditionally from a vulnerability management isn't. It's more from a hygiene perspective. So CTEM has definitely that more reactive approach and use cases versus traditional vulnerability management that makes this modern SOC really appealing and makes them really need to evolve with that as well. There's also some other matters of compliance. Of course, we're seeing a lot of different frameworks being developed given noteworthy attacks that happened across both countries over the last few years. And there being some directives that are very specific and targeting specific controls. Australia has the famous Essential 8. New Zealand has critical controls or top 10 controls that organizations should abide to, and MSSPs have to be aware of those. How to measure performance on my managed SOC traditionally is through MTTD, mean time to detect and mean time to respond, MTTR. Okay, so there could be some sort of measurement. This here is a simple slider that only adds them up and tries to provide an insight into attacker dwell time. This is pretty high level here, of course, not real depth in here, but this is just to highlight what kind of visibility and what kind of value customers can get out of an MSSP SOC or SOC as a service provided by one of these providers. Now, a big shift from the customer's SOC, customer built SOC to MSSPs is also talent retention. And this is something we're calling out here in this section called Financial Case for Modern SOC. It's about scaling. It's about having professionals that can scale through multiple customers and that you can bring the best talent for the best service as well. It's hard for single SOCs to retain top high talent because they don't often have the necessary budget to keep them. So this here are some numbers from a particular salary guide here, from Hayes salary guide, Moxie Insights as well, looking at average salary range across New Zealand, for example, for different roles in here. So this here just paints a picture in terms of the importance of having visibility of that for your service that is being provided. And lastly, strategic roadmap and future outlook. Now this here talks about how to build competitive, profitable MSSP in ANZ region and key trends, right? So you'll notice here a few trends in here are about automation, right? And proactiveness. So the blueprint for success here calls out as the first reason automation first. I foresee, and I'm seeing, looking at the industry as well, what other nascent companies or startups are coming up in this landscape. And there's a lot of AI-driven MSSP ones that are looking to revolutionize the SOC with AI. So profit security, drop AI. So these different new startups are looking to target this particular challenge of scalability for the SOC. This year is going to be very critical for MSSPs to do as part of their future SOC. And I look to provide that into other videos. But then understanding how to build proactive assessments and IT hygiene assessments into services. So we call out here compliant as a service offerings, following different compliance frameworks, verifications. This is going to be critical for both countries here and for MSSPs. This is still something that is brewing in the industry, but definitely something that a lot of technologies and vendors are already looking at. It's a matter of having the rubber meet the ground and making sure that they know how to push that to the right customer offering, which is part of the value-based pricing as well. All right, and it's about evolving the opportunities, right? So looking at what is next for this industry, something that I'm extremely curious and I want to do moving forward from here. So hopefully this makes sense to you and you can access these little infographic and have some thoughts into it. Now the sources are called out in the description of this video, given I couldn't actually add them into the infographic in a very intuitive way. So make sure you access it and you have a look at it and let me know what your thoughts are on this. So give it a follow to learn more about the future SOCs. See you soon.